Hey everybody, welcome to the Patty G Show. I'm your host, Patty G. We are back for another exciting episode. We are getting towards the end of the year, but the episodes are still coming. We're going to keep on rocking and rolling. This week we have Kevin Gardner of Hub Insurance, and there's a little backstory as to how he got there, and that's really what we're going to talk about this episode. But before we do so, I want to give a big, wonderful shout out and thank you to the amazing folks that bring you this show each and every week. Building 5, Mimosa Handcrafted Jewelry, Falaya Real Estate, Lakeman's Health Center, Horizon Financial Group, Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge, and our outfit of the day is always brought to you by McLavy Ltd. Now, without further ado, Kevin, welcome to the show.
Patty, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you on, man.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here.
Learn about what it is that you did before you got to where you are. And
insurance isn't always the most exciting topic.
It's like talking to an accountant, you know?
It's
like it's numbers and that's about it.
Just hope people aren't turning off the podcast right now.
No, I think if anything, people will be more intrigued with how hot of a topic insurance is at this moment.
No doubt.
And it's just going to continue to be a hot topic, especially with the whirlwind of 2022 and 2023, which maybe we'll get into about all that from an insurance side of things. But for those that may not be aware of who you are and what the heck do you do, man?
So, Kevin Gardner, and I am an employee benefit consultant and producer at Hub, and senior vice president, and have been with Hub since 2011. And we were acquired in 2011. Prior to that, we were a company called Strategic Employee Benefits.
Okay. So let's get the origin of Strategic Employee Benefits. How did that get started? Very much by accident, probably. I started out of college in '88, and I started in the life insurance business. And during the day, I would at night you would have your life insurance appointments, and during the day you were looking for things to do, and so you didn't go play golf, or go to the movie theater, or do things that weren't productive. I began to work with another person in my office who did employee benefits and health insurance. Began to learn that, understand that, started working with small companies, and small meaning 2, 3, 4 man groups. So real small.
Really small, and learned the business. And probably after about 3 years, had enough success with that and liked that enough that I changed my focus from the life insurance side to the employee benefit side. So it was really by accident. I didn't go into it saying I want to be in the employee benefits or health insurance business. I really got into it by accident, by needing something to do during the day.
that wasn't golfing or recreational activities.
It was easy to do. I had buddies of mine who I worked with, who I started with. And, I used to call them the devil, because they would tempt you every day to go play golf or go to the movies, and resisted that and tried to do something more productive. And luckily it did work out.
And see, like as a young father, I'm like, how did they get the approval to go do those things during the day? I mean, if they had a wife and kids, it's like
they didn't have a wife and kids.
Okay, well, there's your solution right there.
Because
I'm thinking like life insurance. You're right. It's you're going either have dinner with the families or you're going to meet them after the dinner. It's a nighttime affair, and so it's like having to go away. If you have a family during the day, if your partner may be like, hey, you're staying at home and watching the kids because you got to work at night.
Yeah, that business has changed as well. Today, it's more during the day, but back in the day. And this in the 80s and 90s, it was all kitchen table at night business, and you needed to find a way to be productive during the day. So definitely different. But again, it was a positive move, and I think probably a lot of people, when you talk to them about their careers, they may have majored in a certain topic in college, and what they thought they were going to do many times isn't what they end up doing. Great thing about our area and our country is you have a lot of options, and you got to figure that out. I know when my kids were in college and they said, I'm really not sure exactly what I want to do. And you basically, your guidance to them is work hard in college, learn as much as you can, know how to communicate well, because ultimately, in your business, the biggest challenge that some younger people have is the inability to communicate well. If you can communicate well, you're going to be able to position yourself in life pretty well.
So what did you actually go to college for? Was it insurance sales? I mean, what was that
I majored in finance.
Okay.
And so I had no earthly clue when I was doing it what I was going to end up doing down the road. I really didn't. So, my dad was a lawyer, and he grew up in the age where being a lawyer was different than the way it is today. Today to be a lawyer is tough. You have billable hours. You have a lot of pressures to put on you. And I remember, and this may be true for other parents and all, but I remember him sitting with me saying, you don't want to go into this profession.
You see what your dad does for a living? Don't do it.
I said, a lawyer's a great profession. But that was his take on it at the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, nowadays, being in the billable hour world is one of those things that not a lot of people get, right? For example, if you've got an insurance policy where there's going to be a premium and there's going to be, some type of commission or a fee associated with that, doesn't matter how long you spend on it, there's just like that fee.
That's right.
And then when you look at your accountants and your lawyers, and I guess there's some other industries that have billable hours, and you're looking at it like, well, wait, you had a 15-minute, like we were just on the phone talking. What do you mean you're going to bill me for that?
Correct.
Well, that is my service. That is my profession.
Well,
that's what we bill you. What else would I bill you on?
That's correct. I think back in the day it was probably more of a retainer, and today we obviously have, for a professional, you have to be paid, and again, that's the way the world works.
Yeah, you never thought it'd be like, okay, well, do you go to the doctor's office? Yeah, and they bill you? Yeah, do you ever complain about that bill? No? All right, well, it's the same thing here.
No, they complain about that bill, too.
It's a lot harder to fight the doctor's office,
no doubt.
though.
The CYA 360 Business Leader Symposium returns to Baton Rouge in October. This all-day event focuses on the main threats to your business. Speakers will present on fiduciary duties, brand building, insurance strategies, cybersecurity, exit strategies, financial confidence, and executive wellness. Jay Johnson, coach of the national champ LSU baseball team, will deliver the keynote address. Join us for the 2023 Business Leader Symposium, October 5th at the Renaissance. For tickets, go to CYA360.com. That's CYA360.com.
So, what about life insurance? What kind of drew you down that path?
It's strictly a friend had called me after college and said, hey, why don't you come try this? It was as simple as that. It wasn't that, hey, I looked at it, I interviewed multiple people. It was, I had a friend who said, this is a great career, and let me go check it out. And that started.
Which, I mean, at the time, only selling life insurance is kind of a hard pitch to get somebody in.
It's one of the hardest insurance jobs during your first 5 to 10 years. I mean, that's really tough to build up enough in revenue. And what's happened with most life insurance agents today, they do life insurance and investment work. And so that has diversified them enough that career has gotten more attractive and better. Back in the day, there was a separation. Investment people did investments, life insurance folks did life insurance, and they didn't intermingle. That has changed now, and you have life insurance agents doing both, which has given them more opportunity. Back then, it was you were focused on that, and that's a hard subject. That's a hard conversation. You think about going to see your market when you're 21, 22 years old, or other 21, 22-year-olds, and their interest is beer money, and their interest in taking extra dollars to put away for life insurance. That's a hard conversation.
Well, you're talking with an age range that doesn't see life ending ever.
Correct.
They never have put a thought to death or benefits for family.
That's right.
You're exactly right. Well, this weekend I'm going to go out with my buddies, and I need some cash for that.
Even what I do today, health insurance, when companies are promoting for a new employee that they're hiring, for existing employees, benefits are tremendously important. It's a retention tool. It's a way to reward them without them having to pay taxes on it. Great way to compensate an employee. A 22, 23-year-old coming out of college, their interest in benefits is low. Their interest in higher wages is great. And so that age group, they're wired differently as far as what's important. I get it. You have to understand that.
Well, you got to look at where their life's at and what their focused on at the time is getting a house, getting a car, getting all these different purchases. And so they're like, I need cash.
Right.
I don't care if my tooth starts hurting. I'll just put that off and put that off. I don't need dental insurance, you know?
That's
like,
right.
what is dental insurance?
It's a tough thing for employers today because we're in a difficult labor market, and we're still in a difficult labor market. And everyone's trying to figure out, how do I keep and retain employees? And we have such a varied demographic group. We have so many generational groups that all want different things in the way of how they want an employer to treat them. From the beginning stages of more about salaries to the ending stages more about benefits. And how do you please all those different generations in a homogenized world on how you have to treat everybody similar? So it's tough.
Well, especially whenever you're hiring different age groups. So if you're hiring a younger age class, then you've got to have a different mindset going into the meeting.
Correct.
You know, it's here's your offer letter, here's your signing bonus, here's your annual performance bonuses that you can maybe expect depending on what metrics you hit. Whereas if you look at somebody, you know, after 40 or something, it's here's the health insurance benefits, here's the vision insurance, here's the dental insurance. It's different packages.
Correct.
And how it's laced together and you know, presented. It's incredible and fascinating to me.
It is. It is.
So you got into life insurance and then you decided to start doing employee benefits.
Correct.
And y'all started a company together?
I started from scratch. And we, as we grew, just like any company, you start adding employees. And that's always, for a young person starting out, you always want to see your income grow. And it's a shocker in life when you realize, wow, I've got to make investments in the business. And so I've got to take a step down to take a step up. And it was a real hard lesson, you know, getting into it to say, wow, I've got to make these investments, take a step down to grow. But you quickly learn how getting good people and making that investment continue to provide springboards for your growth. And so we started with one employee in 1992, and then at the 10-year point of the business, we were at about 41 employees. So it was a pretty big grow in a quick period of time. And so it was we were blessed with a good opportunity at a good time. And you think about it that, you know, we talked about Hub. Hub is, you know, one of the largest firms in the country that are brokerage. And back then, though, there were no large firms like that. You didn't have the big, giant brokerage firms in the market on the benefit side. It was all independents. So your opportunity for growth was great because you didn't have the competition pressure from these big firms in your market. And the great thing about Louisiana, I guess you could call this a great or a bad, is that it is a small employer market. And a lot of the big companies at the time, the big brokerage firms, were not attracted to come into a small employer market. And growing a small business in a small employer market, catering to companies that were like you, was a perfect recipe to really grow. And so it was a lot of fun during that time. A lot of stress, but a lot of fun.
So as you're building out this organization and you're basically hiring a person a quarter.
Right.
When you're offering this, and so kind of better explain exactly for those folks that may not be aware from an insurance broker to an insurance carrier,
right, what
that difference is and where you fell into the equation.
Yeah, so the best way to think about it is we represent the employer to the market.
Okay.
So our job is to represent the employer and be agnostic to the carrier. So think about today, when you narrow it down, benefits are a lot of times people gravitate benefits to health insurance. But benefits are a lot broader than just health insurance. But if we focus on health insurance, when I started in the benefit side and started the company in 91, again, did life insurance first, started the benefit side in 91, there were 20 plus companies writing health insurance at that time. And you come to today, there's really 2 primary companies writing health insurance in our market. There are fringe carriers that are writing beyond the 2, but primarily 2. And so back then, our job was to represent the employer to those 20. Now our job is to represent the employer to these 2, and then other options they can do around that.
This episode is proudly presented by Gage. Gage is a local company here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. For over 40 years, Gage has provided businesses with the very best telecommunications, IT, and standby power services available. Gage has a variety of services, including Gage Cloud Voice. It is the last phone system your business will ever need. You need to give your business the ability to be accessible anytime, anywhere, and with Gage's cloud-based phone system, you'll be able to accomplish just that. Not only do they have Gage Cloud Voice, they have fully managed IT services that are proactive network monitoring, 24/7, 365, help desk, business continuity. They are there for you. What you're also going to need is some cybersecurity. Gage is there to safeguard your business from potential cyber threats, even when you aren't aware they exist. Gage also is power and leaders in standby generators. They are the #1 Cummins dealer on the Gulf Coast and provide generators to homes and businesses of any size so you can keep life going. Gage, better connected, a proud sponsor of the Patty G Show. So starting back with 20 different carriers at the time, these are actual people. For example, Blue Cross and Blue Shield would be an example of one of the 20 back in the day. What happened to them?
So think about this, is that it's a great question. So in 1991, Blue Cross had about a 12% market share on small group.
Okay.
Today they have over an 85% market share on small group. A lot of things happened that got Blue Cross to where they are, and got the market narrowed down. One, economies of size, because the larger you are, the more negotiating ability you have with the hospitals. So a Blue Cross or United Healthcare have to go to the hospitals and the physicians and negotiate rate. Those rates correlate into what an employer pays. And so as they built market share, people with smaller market share had a harder time competing. So that was part of the evolution of where those companies washed out. Secondly, in 2011, ACA passed, the Accountable Care Act. And that washed out others because of the requirements that those carriers had to make or live to based on what the law now was requiring them to do. So it was a variety of things. It was competition. It was laws, rules, and regulations. It was the ability to stomach losses. Because think about our property and casualty market. We're moving in the property and casualty market similar to where the health insurance market's going, right?
We're already there.
We are. We're losing players. We're losing because insurance companies don't have an appetite for loss. I mean, they're in the business for loss and risk, but they don't like long-term loss.
And they don't like continuous.
They don't like continuous loss.
Louisiana is a place of continuous loss.
Yeah, and so it's tough in that area. And so if you're a carrier, there's a period of time you can take and stomach loss. And if you can't make enough margin, you're going to leave the market. And so I think that's ultimately what gravitated to where we are.
Well, because from my understanding, these carriers are pretty much like investors. They're taking the premiums, investing and hoping to get a return? Or how does that actual carrier side work?
Yeah, the health insurance side, and I'm not as familiar on all the intricacies on the property and casualty side. That's a division of our company. My side and the employee benefit side, their margin is really, they're taking a small margin of the premium, but it's a huge portion of the U.S. economy. So think about it this way, is that if healthcare is, let's say, 1/5 of the U.S. economy and people are insuring that, a massive amount of premium is flowing through these carriers. They are making some money on the spread of time it takes between when they're getting in the premium and when they're paying out a claim. The margin, though, is not gigantic. But you have companies that are in the business today that are making monies in other areas, pharmacy and things like that. So many of the larger national carriers have bought PBMs or pharmacy practices that helps build revenue sources other than just the healthcare. Those companies getting bigger, more integrated, have helped them stay in it. If you didn't have that integration, harder to stay in the business on that.
Yeah, I mean, because then you don't have really a revenue source at all outside of whatever premiums that they're being charged.
That's it. So your ability to stomach a loss is harder.
Yeah, and I guess.
And we're in. Think about this: is that we're not in the most healthy state.
We got good food.
You take that on top that we are extremely price sensitive because we're not in a huge income state. And so you take a combination of we're not as healthy, because of that premiums are expensive, employees can't afford to share in a significant portion of the cost because it's expensive. So there's a lot of pressures on managing premium dollars. There's pressures for every state and every employer, but it's really acute here because it's so the dynamic of charging an employee more money and having a company to have the ability to absorb the increase is much more challenging here than it is in some other states. You go other parts of the country, the majority of employers are fully insured. Which means they pay their premium and the insurance company takes 100% of the risk. In Louisiana, we have a large percentage of employers that are partially self-funded. And they've done that because they're trying to find ways to stretch the dollar longer, to manage the plan better, to keep the premiums cheaper and not as expensive. So a lot more innovation and a lot more sophistication in health plans are happening here versus in states that don't have as much pressure on because of premiums.
And so what is that difference between an employer being fully insured versus partially insured? What does that actually mean?
So the goal behind it is that today you think about your auto insurance. Mm-hmm. You pay your premium and you hope you don't get in a wreck, but if you do, you don't have any responsibility other than your deductible. Okay. The insurance company takes all the risk. You pay your premium, they take the risk, and at renewal, they're going to assess an increase to you based on how you performed or how their pool performed. If you're partially self-funded and you put this into the health insurance world, the insurance company for taking that risk is going to take a margin, right? They're going to say, I'm going to take a margin that I need to make in a profit to take this risk. That's business. That's fair.
Right.
If I go partially self-funded and I take some of that risk, I now don't need the insurance company as much. So I take away their margin and I put it in my pocket. But I do take more risk for taking that margin. So I have to make sure that I buy appropriate insurance to cover in case that risk was really high. I had a bad year. But if I had an average to better year, I stick that savings in my pocket.
Okay.
And I have more flexibility in my plan. I have things that I can do that provide, greater alternatives for my employees than what I currently have now. So a lot of employers that are 100 employees or larger are looking at that as options to save money, where in the past that was only something that a large employer would look at. Now you're seeing that come all the way down to the smaller employer market.
Which people are finding in the small mom and pop shops where it's less than 10 employees, they're paying more in health insurance and getting less benefits than some of their folks that are working in 1,000 plus.
Correct. It's if you're a small employer today and you're 10 employees, your options are really tough. And as we sit with our clients in that segment, you have to shop your benefits, you have to educate yourself on your options, but you don't have the same options that 100-person, 200-person, 500-person has. You have to be still a smart shopper. You have to make sure that where you're buying it, what kind of options is my broker currently giving me? Are they educating me on all the different scenarios I can do with narrow networks and things like that? But your options are more limited when you're in that segment. And it's expensive for everyone. I mean, there is no such thing as, and so many folks are shielded from the cost of insurance until they go out on Cobra. And then they realize on Cobra, wow, this stuff is expensive. I mean, it is expensive.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen my premiums go up each year.
Correct.
Just within the health insurance, on the family plan and all that stuff. But it is like something I pay attention to. It's like, well, hang on, I didn't really agree to this price increase, but it's like, what are your alternatives?
That's right. That's right.
Whenever you're inside an employer plan as an employee, you're like, well, that's just what it costs,
Correct.
And you got to kind of figure things out outside of your premiums.
Yeah, it's a strange world in that it's so expensive for everybody. It's frustrating sometimes for employers that they can't really make anyone happy, right? Because the employees are unhappy because they think they're paying too much.
Right.
Deductibles are too high. Their out-of-pocket's too high. The employer feels like they're not getting appreciation from the employees on all the money that they're having to pay. So it's a hard thing. It's a hard business to get satisfaction out there. You just have to communicate to your employees and engage and bring them in to understanding what's happening. We find a lot of times when there's discontent in health plans from the employee point of view, it's because the employer hasn't talked to them enough about what's happening. If you shield your employees from what's happening and you don't make them part of the process, you're going to build disconnect. And I think whether it's with your marriage or with your employees, communicating well is critical.
100%.
And if you don't communicate well, you're gonna end up in a tough situation.
Yeah, most problems can be resolved just by communicating a little bit more than you are right now.
Correct.
Thank you so very much to Building 5 for becoming the latest sponsor of the Patty G Show. We are going to be filming once a month at Building 5. We're going to post about it on our social so you can come and visit with us. Building 5 is an excellent food establishment if you're into sharing boards and really getting a creative menu. Misty and Brumby have done an excellent job of creating an environment that's warm, welcoming, and inviting for every single occasion. Go on over to Building 5 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and tell them that the Patty G Show sent you. So you're building this practice. How many partners did you have with you going into this?
So when I started, it was myself, and then I had a person on the. We affiliated in the early years with a life insurance agency called Northwestern Mutual. Okay. They're a really big, wonderful life insurance operation. And the general agent and I started and partnered in the beginning. And then 5 years into it, brought in another partner who was really great at the people administration. Because think about this. When you're going through rapid growth, and your responsibility, is both growth and people management, something's going to suffer. And when we were going through that growth, I said to myself early on, I said, I'm really good at the business growth side, but these people are kicking my ass. And I'm saying that in a nice way because your employees are everything. But,
well, yeah.
But you are, when you're in sales, you're trying to make everybody happy. Trying to make the client happy, trying to make the employees happy. And employees ultimately want someone to manage them. And they may say they don't. You're thinking about today, we live in a partially virtual world. There's a struggle companies are having today because people need people to tell them what we expect, what you should be doing in a positive way, not putting your thumb on them, but giving them direction. And we needed that direction. And I knew that. And I said, if we're going to go to the next level, if we're going to continue to have growth, I need to have a person focused on the people. And I brought in a partner, and he did a fabulous job with that. And it continued to help the growing of the company. I really believe if I wouldn't have done that, I wasn't good enough to be able to do both. I wouldn't have succeeded, and you would have stopped. I think the blessing that I have is that I work with a lot of small businesses, and I get to watch what has made them successful and made them unsuccessful. And you watch and say, wow, I see the mistake that they're making. I can't tell them what they're doing wrong. That's not my place. But I don't want to duplicate that.
Right.
And you have to take a humble view of yourself, of what you're good at and what you're not good at. And I knew where my strength was and where my weaknesses were. And that really helped me as we grew.
Well, and there comes a point in time in every entrepreneur's business journey where they figure out they have to both work in and on the business.
Right.
You know, they've been working on the business and trying to grow the clients, trying to build out their book of business and expand their reach, that you oftentimes get caught up in exactly what you're saying.
Correct.
You don't have the time to work in the business and make sure that the business and the people that you've cultivated to run your operations are being well taken care of.
Correct.
And recognizing it and having that self-awareness was huge on your part, saying, look, I can get out there and grow, get clients, but I really need somebody making sure my team is maximizing their potential.
Yeah, because like in any business, you think about in your business, that there's multiple people that are involved in managing different groups of people. In any business, everyone's not all doing the same thing. In our business, we have people that are focused 100% on service. We have people that are focused on consulting. We have a finance group that are involved in it. All of those folks have different needs and wants, and not one person can manage each of them. So as you build your company, you start adding managers that manage that group and managers that manage that, and they all have to ultimately report somewhere because they all want direction. And so those steps that you make, you know, as you look back over time, it sounds like it was a lot happening at one time, but it was incremental as it happened. And we made, like any business, you made tons of mistakes, but you just adjust and you continue to learn from it and go forward.
Yeah, you take them as learning opportunities.
That's right.
And not setbacks.
Correct.
You know?
Correct.
So y'all build this practice out, and then you just get a phone call from Hub. I mean, a knock on the door, a letter in the mail.
Yeah, it was interesting. Probably sometime in around 2005 or 2006, right after Hurricane Katrina, the first major competitor of ours sold. And that was really a wake-up call. We were saying, why would anyone sell? Why would you want to do this? And we really didn't see a reason why that was positive. I think at the time, you think on selling a business, most of the time of when I talked to those people who were selling, it was really an opportunity to take chips off the table. It was, they reached a certain time and age that they felt like, you know, I've spent all my time grinding and growing, and I want to monetize to what I've done. We were young. We had a great group of people. We had a great leadership team put together at that point. We had gone through, you know, we had offices here in Baton Rouge, in New Orleans, Houma, Shreveport, Lafayette, and during that time had, you know, experienced not just 9/11, but which was minor for here, but the hurricanes were unbelievable on us. We had we were out of our building for 8 months in the New Orleans Metairie office because of Katrina, and it was just, those were long building blocks of first time experiencing everyone being out. You think about when COVID hit around the country, that was the first time people really got separated and had to learn how to work remote. In Louisiana, we're professionals at that. I mean, because of the hurricanes, we've all worked remote a lot and learned how to work remote. And so, you know, we had learned to work well through it. There was nothing that really identified that we should sell. And then 2011 hit, and that was the passage of the Accountable Care Act. And the world really did change in the employee benefit world. There was, I think, a lot of pessimism of what the long-term outlook was going to be on healthcare. And again, a lot of people refer to that as Obamacare, when that passed. But there was significant regulation that took place. I would talk to a labor or ERISA attorney once a month, and then it was speaking to him every day when the passage of the Accountable Care Act. Large firms continue to call on us from a sales standpoint, but those calls began to get more needed because the resources you needed at that time were significantly more than what it was in 2005, 6, and 7. And so we then began to listen. We saw more companies selling, more companies getting more resources. And at the end of the day, your job is to find great resources for your clients and certainly resources for your employees. The negative is that if you are telling your employees all along that we have no interest in selling, we have a great culture, and all of them have worked with businesses that have sold, who went to their employees and said, nothing's going to change. Everything's going to be fine. And then in 12 months, half of the people lost their jobs, the companies changed, the culture changed, and it was a dramatic shift. And that burned in our brains because we said, we're going to be the greatest hypocrites of all time if we have preached about our desire to remain independent and we know that our company is going to change dramatically. So we began over the course of about a year talking to people who had done it about our business and how much changed. And we decided it was probably the right thing to do. So we met with Hub, we gave them a commitment, and then I got cold feet. And then we pulled out and we decided not to do it. And it just at that point still didn't feel well. So 12 months again passed by. We continued to date. We continued to talk about what our concerns were, and finally we ended up doing it. So it was a long, long process because of so much of that built up in our brains about what it meant to be acquired and how much was going to change. And it was an emotional thing for our folks. You know, we told our leadership team first what we were planning on doing, and they were devastated. Yeah. There was no optimism. There was no excitement. There was no, this is going to be a great deal. And then you tell your employees, same belief. Going to be dramatic change. It's going to be awful. It's going to be terrible. One of the things Hub agreed to is they said, we'll allow you to stay separate. You don't have to come join with us. You stay separate. You can remain in your building. Just keep doing what you're doing and prove to them that nothing's going to change. So 24 months go by. Nothing changed. We didn't lay off anyone. Same people were there. Culture remained intact. And then so finally we then joined them into their operation. Okay. So it was unusual, and think about this: we don't produce widgets, we don't make anything, we provide service. And if you lose your people, and if you have to have a layoff, you're going to lose clients. And what did that company pay for if they're going to lose that? So I think even when we look at our competitors, when they've gone through acquisitions, really nothing significant has changed. So this industry is a little bit unique, and it's really, knock on wood, has been phenomenal in that we have gotten the benefits of being acquired. We did get the resources, but we really haven't had the change in culture or the change in resources. We've got more resources. So it's been good. It's been a really good acquisition.
So what initially gave you that cold feet?
Watching what happened to every other business that we work with that got acquired. And I would say it's the vast majority that had significant change. The vast majority. Culture changes. People leave. Their clients leave. It's just a cascade of challenges. And it's really hard to hold that together. You know, I think people go into it with the best intentions, but you work at a business usually for the people you work with, the culture and the environment that's been built. That's why you work there. You know, there's going to be competitive wages out there across the industry, and people can go find and chase money. But ultimately, as they mature in business and want to build a career, They want to be around people who are excited and have growth. And as long as you're providing your employees a growth opportunity, and in Louisiana, as much as people like to criticize us as a state, we have tremendous growth opportunities. There's hundreds and thousands of companies that are growing and working on growing and trying to do right for their people. And, we're in a fun industry that you get to work with them as they try to provide benefits to those employees to keep them and retain them. And so, we focus sometimes on the negative because there are negative things in our state. But we have a lot of employers that are trying to do things the right way.
And as a business owner, when you look at a merger and acquisition phase, if that is presented before you, it can be a tough thing because you're like, I have built this precious child of mine. I've got this culture. I've got this staff that's on the team, and it's incredible to see what we've created. But at the same time, how much more could we do with those additional resources?
Yeah,
Patty G Show is proudly brought to you by Mimosa Handcrafted Jewelry. Mimosa Handcrafted Jewelry is a local business right here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They create handcrafted jewelry for everyday use, that special occasion, whatever it may be. Gentlemen, they've got amazing jewelry both for male and female. Everyone is their audience. After years of experimenting with everything from ceramic jewelry, glass beads, and enamel, they've settled in on the ancient art of lost wax casting is their main form of creating their work. They cast everything in bronze, sterling silver, and 14-karat gold. Every step of the way is done here right in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Proud sponsors of the Patty G Show. Mimosa Handcrafted Jewelers. Get out there and tell them that Patty G sent you, and they're going to take great care of you on your next order.
I think the thing that's critical in an acquisition is this, and is it's become so commonplace today that it's just part of our lives about things being acquired. And if it's done for the right reasons, and if the employees are happy and leadership's done a good job, if the leadership that sells stays engaged, you're probably going to have a successful acquisition long term. If leadership disappears because the reason for the sale was strictly financial, you're probably going to see a challenge. And that's what we've seen as you look at companies that get acquired and get acquired for the right reason. If they feel like they've reached the pinnacle of growth and they need to go to the next level, and that former ownership is passionate about the company and seeing it grow, they will grow and they will benefit from it. But if the reason for the sale was an exchange of revenue to monetize themselves, you're probably going to see a different outcome because you're going to overnight morph a culture into a different culture. People can't withstand dramatic changes in culture because they're working somewhere for that culture. And if you dramatically change it, unless your culture was bad, you're in for a bad ride.
Yeah, and I think that people that often are maybe in a widget building business and they get purchased by a larger competitor or somebody that wants to downstream their services, they often are looking at what type of paycheck can I get, and then I'm gone. And as the purchaser, you can get concerned by saying, well, wait, if all we want is this and then we purchase them, but all of management leaves, do we still have something tangible there?
Correct.
Is the business success tied to management?
Yeah, and I think both sides, right? Both sides have responsibility. The bigger the company acquiring sometimes loses the understanding of what the local has done and can't adapt to that. They're just too big to adapt. But those companies who and again, there's successful mergers all the time, but we all hear about the terrible unsuccessful mergers. And it's usually, not getting into the granular and decisions being made from afar and without people really being aware.
Yeah, and it's, as that buyer, you have to know they've been successful for a reason. Let's just come in, do our rebrand, do our name change and shifting, but let's just let them keep running their operations, which is what it sounds like Hub has done with y'all.
They have, and they've done countless since us acquisitions. and they've kept that recipe. I mean, they leave people alone to do what they're successful at and provide, because they wouldn't be buying you unless you were successful.
Nobody's going to buy a sinking ship.
No, and so if they buy you, the number one thing to pay off the investment that they've made is to keep everything that they bought. And so if they mess with the relationships and your ability to maintain the relationship with the client, what have you bought? You've bought a disaster. And so you've got to keep, it's an interesting thing. If they went out, and I know this from talking to the leadership, if they went out and the business owner told them, I only want to work another 2 years, they're not going to buy that shop.
Really?
Because you're buying a 2-year revenue cycle.
Yeah.
So there's no way you're going to build enough capital with that employer over 2 years to get them on board. You have to make sure leadership is going to remain.
Well, and I guess from a transition standpoint, where you look at companies that have owners where they're on their way out and they're looking to sell. That's their reason. I'm looking to retire. I'm looking to slow down, spend more time away from the office, and really enjoy the remaining portion of my life. They are often more open to selling to somebody coming in at a younger age saying, I'm building and expanding my practice. I want to take over what you've got in a 2-year transition period. Sounds perfect. Whereas a seasoned company saying, no, we're trying to expand our reach. We really want the people there doing what they do. That's not going to help us expand our reach.
And the thing is, to that person who's selling, who wants to retire, the value that they're going to get, if they're honest, the value they're going to get from the company buying them is going to be diminished greatly. They're not going to pay the same multiple if they know you're leaving in 2 years.
Yeah.
They're going to pay a diminished multiple because they're going to factor into that lost business they're going to have when you leave. And
that, to me, is so crazy, all the components that go into a sales price.
Yeah, because you have to have, in certain companies, you have to build an organization that's repeatable if you're not there. If you're a one-man show, one-lady show, and you're selling your business, you're not going to drive great value compared to an organizational structure, because that can continue without you.
Right.
And that's the goal behind it, is that I will pay a much greater multiple for a venture that can continue without one of the cogs, one of the pegs, if they leave. But if I'm buying an operation where it's solely based on one person, that's a tough value.
Yeah, that's pretty risky for an insurance agency to invest in.
Correct.
So within the state of Louisiana, we've all kind of experienced a lot of premium effects on our homeowners. And you said that you'll have like a division of y'all that do that. What are you seeing or hearing when talking with your team about what's going down?
It's to use the word brutal would be a good way to explain it. The big agencies in Louisiana have access to most of the markets, and those markets have all consistently been dramatically impacted. The amount that people are having to pay additionally in homeowners, I'll say this, and I guess I'm biased being in the insurance business, but insurance cost should be in every governor that's running, in every politician in the state. Flood insurance, homeowners insurance should be the number one issue right now. It is, to keep a successful state in a successful city requires a strong middle class, right? And our middle class is being crushed. This is absolutely, not quietly, but quickly becoming, I think, a bigger than a crisis. When you look at a person who has a mortgage, they don't have an option to be self-insured. There's limits on what they can afford to increase their deductible to, and they're being literally priced out. I know kids, my kids, their friends who are looking at buying houses can't buy the house because they can't afford the insurance bill that they're being presented on the new house. And when you get that kind of stuff happening, that's problematic. I mean, and we've got to figure out, and it's a national issue to try to work with. The flood insurance is not something we can deal with locally. It's going to require a concerted effort among many to try to figure out how we can keep a vibrant middle class and insurance to be affordable. Because as the Commission of Insurance will say periodically, you need to continue to shop your coverage. You can shop your coverage. You're still going to end up with an astronomical increase.
Well, I mean, who's there to shop around with?
Is limited. You know, the flood insurance is the flood insurance. It's the federal government. And so it's really a challenge, I think, in our state. And, you know, on my end, this has been a 30-year escalator ride. We have not experienced property and casualty goes up, goes down, goes up, and now it's just a meteoric rise up. Our business has been straight up on increases. Rates have gone up on health insurance consistently forever.
Yeah.
And so you are having certainly we talk about individuals and all, but companies today, which I work with mostly, are being squeezed by what we bring on the health insurance side, and they're being crushed on that side, on the property and casualty side. So I wish I could sit here and tell you there's a magic solution. All of the professionals in our office that we talk to do an unbelievable job in shopping the market and looking at options, and they have all the markets, but it's a tough market.
Well, and then the end user, the consumer, is left with what alternative too?
Limited.
You know, if you don't have health insurance, if you don't want to pay for health insurance, what's your alternative?
Yeah, and it's you know, you have no alternative. If you're an employer, you have to offer if you're going to keep and retain people.
Yeah.
You have fines in place based on the size of your group if you don't offer it. So they have to offer it. And so the question is, all of this, trying to find affordable solutions. There are options on the health insurance side of things you can do. Those options get better as you grow on size.
Yeah.
Thank you to Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge for making this show possible. Nick Pentis is a past guest. We love having him on. Listening to him talk about the culture they have over at Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge is really an incredible thing to hear. How they treat not only their employees, but every customer that walks through the door. You are more than just a number to them. They're going to give you that white glove concierge service every step of the way. They're going to make you feel like family and take what can be a stressful time in people's life, shopping for a car. They're going to make it so enjoyable and so pleasurable. You're going to want to go back there time and time again for every new vehicle. Thank you so very much for Mercedes-Benz of making this show possible.
So then, do you see a lot more people starting to merge in same industries? You know, for example, a small accounting firm. Are there more merging happening? Hey, let's merge together so we can do it from a benefit standpoint.
I haven't heard it to that degree, but we were always asked by employers, can I join with other groups? Can I do association type plans?
Yeah.
And that there's lots of rules and regulations that have made that challenging for an employer. But, you certainly see long term as big of a piece of the budget, other than payroll. Benefits are probably the biggest expense a company has, and followed by property and casualty. So
the insurance category and the benefits category make up a bulk of it.
It does. And so you're going to see people certainly looking at ways to try to minimize that.
Well, you've got to get creative to some extent.
Correct.
Whether it's figuring out a way, is there something we can do to self-insure? Is there something that we can do to and offer different paths?
I think your statement is so important, is that it is critical for every employer to become informed consumers, to ask the right questions, to say, tell me, am I seeing all the alternatives? Am I looking at every possible thing that I can do to manage the cost? And if I go from fully insured to some form of partially self-insured, what options, other than me taking on more risk, does that open me up to in the way of managing my plan better and saving money? They need to educate themselves to be able to do that, because there is a world of options that they can do to lower their cost, but they have to be an engaged consumer and know the questions to ask. And and challenge their benefit consultant and challenge their producer that they work with on bringing those options to the table.
Yeah, and it's something that you constantly have to ask about and hope that your provider or your person comes out and actually talks to you. You know, we just had our insurance person come out to the firm and explain more benefits and talk about the options. And they did a whole presentation to everybody that was there to educate us. And I was like, this is great that we have this, you know, but how many employers that are too small don't have this?
Yeah, and it's true. You know, we tell our people every day and we use your industry as the analogy. We said, if you go see a good accountant, your expectation from your tax accountant is to tell you everything legal that you can do to reduce your taxes and make your tax situation more efficient. Our job is the same. They may not culturally be ready to do certain things. They may not be from a risk standpoint ready, but your job is to tell them everything they have at their fingertips to do. Their job is to learn them and decide which things am I willing to accept. And it's really no different than your industry. And I think any professional in any industry, your job partially is an educator. You can't force anyone to do anything, but you need to at least tell them what they can do. The worst thing ever is to have a client come and say, same thing for you. Another CPA told me about this other thing. Why didn't you tell me about it? I don't want to ever be in that same situation on my end. I want our people to be telling them about this is everything that you can possibly do.
Yeah, and we face that. We face calls and, you know, the mailing folks, the folks that mail out little brochures. We saw a lot about that with the ERCs. We got calls, why didn't you, we got this letter in the mail, we could get this, why haven't you told me this, you know? And so then we have to explain to them, well, we looked at you, you didn't meet the parameters.
And I don't want you to go to jail.
Yeah, I don't want you to go to jail. My first priority here. And like, you don't understand that those folks sending all that out, they're just soliciting you for business.
That's right.
They don't know your whole situation.
Right.
So sometimes I'm having to field those calls and like, look, they're not seeing the whole picture that we see. This is why it's, but then back to the education part. This is why you can't do this.
Right.
This is why you can't go here and take this deduction.
I think everybody who's in business realizes that the public, and it's not their fault, it's over years of experience, is skeptical. Mm-hmm. And they always think there must be an ulterior motive where someone's not telling me something. Yeah. And so you've got to gain that trust to them to say there is no ulterior, but I have to tell you all the things that are out there and why.
Yeah, and I have to do my job to the best of my ability, which includes explaining you all these things and letting you know what's out there.
Right.
So what's on the horizon for you?
Just, you know, I think running a business and while I'm with Hub, our original team is still intact. And Hub has kept and allowed us to keep our original team intact. And so my focus is to continue to do what I was doing before, give those employees the vision and the opportunity for growth. I think the most fun thing has been to see so many of our folks come in, start at an entry-level job, grow within the company, and be leaders of the company now, making a great income, having families that they support. And I think that's, you know, that's pie in the sky, but that's your hope with anything. I want to keep, as long as I feel like, you know, for me, that I'm providing value and worth both for my clients or employees, I enjoy what I'm doing. I want to keep doing that.
Absolutely. So as we start to kind of wind down the show, we have a set list of questions we ask every guest.
Okay.
So the first one is, what is something you did as a kid you wish you could still do today?
Wow. Probably play basketball.
the knees don't go side to side as quickly and as easily as they used to.
I had limited jumping ability back then. I have zero today. But I sure would like to pretend that I can do it.
Just a little bit, you know, just a little bit of a feet off the ground is all we can ask for.
That's a great question.
So you've gone through so many different components of your industry over your career, from starting in something that was totally different than what you ended up getting into to being part of a merger and acquisition. Mm-hmm. What are 3 lessons you have learned along your way?
You know, the first would be is surround yourself with great people. That's such an overused statement, but it is the key to your business. I look at each level of what we've done, and we've tried to bring in better people, and those people make you better, make your company better. And some of those require a greater investment than you might have felt comfortable making. But good people are critical. The second would be there's absolutely no substitution for hard work. And that hard work is being the first one in the office, being an example to the rest of the people that you're there early. And I know for a younger generation, they may look at that and say, well, that's old time stuff. But there is an important thing from a culture to say, I'm willing to work as hard as anyone else that I'm asking to work. And that's harder to set that example as you get more and more people. But I do think it's critical to know that and let them know, I've walked in your shoes. I'm asking you to do nothing more than what I've done. And you set that tone. Harder to do as you get older. I mean, get bigger, but you still have to do that.
Yeah, you always got to be willing to put in the effort every step of the way.
Yeah, and I think the last is and it's been really important to us is focus on building an intentional culture. Focus on looking at your organization and that it's more than a job, and that the culture is not. Everybody says, well, we have a great culture. What are you doing intentionally to do a great culture? How are you communicating with your people? How do you really prove to them you care? And I think we started off talking early in the podcast about communication and how important communication is. Yeah, I look at the times, and every business owner would be lying if they said, my culture's been always consistently good. Your culture has ebbs and flows based on how good you are at focusing on communication and talking. Same thing goes with your marriage or anything, is that you go through points in your lives where you are with young kids. Communication gets really tough. It becomes duty focused, right? Go here, go there. And the communication is limited. You finish with the duties, you go straight to sleep. And you think about as busy as you are in your work life and busy as you are in the office, when the busiest point is probably when your culture gets most threatened, because you're not focusing on what am I doing to make sure that I'm asking the appropriate questions, giving the appropriate communication. And we've been guilty. We've done that. And you just got to constantly go back to home base and re-engage it and do it. It pays dividends every time.
Absolutely. That communication is always going to be key, regardless of what size you are.
Absolutely.
So what is something you love about Louisiana?
Wow. This is so overused, but the one thing that I've been blessed with is to travel around the country. And there's no doubt that there are prettier places. There are places that are cooler. I mean, temperature-wise, not people-wise. They're cooler. I think every state has its degree of political negativity. We have it in spades. But this is the greatest cultural place to live at anywhere. There's reinvigorating points constantly that you get. You get angry at your state at times, and you fall right back in love with it based on an event, based on people, based on attitudes. People come down and visit us, and they're amazed at the attitudes of the people, the passion and the life that people have here, and that's the thing that we've gone through as a family every phase. I had gotten for a while a house in Florida, and that was like a little summer place that we would go. And I said to my wife a long time ago, I said, that's where we're going to move and retire. And then as you go through that and you use it a few times and you realize, wow, the location's great and the weather's great and it's near a beach. All that stuff is awesome. But other than that, it's devoid of anything that keeps you here. You have to live through it. You go, now I sound like I'm an old fogey, but As you go through it, you start realizing what are the important things that guide you here. And we're unbelievably passionate people. There's no place on earth that's more resilient from what we've gone through. It's just an incredible cultural place to live, and it's where family is, and that's where I want to be.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head where you're describing that perception of what that retirement house is like. You've got a great location, you've got a great weather, you've got a great climate, but that sense of community.
Correct.
That sense of, well, we don't want to just sit and look at a view every day. We want to be a part of something from here on out. Like, so we've got to have that connection.
Yeah, and you've got the maturity at a young age to do it. But as you go through life, when you're going through with your kids and you go on vacation with your kids, and life is crazy when you're at home and you go on vacation, wherever you go on vacation, that's where you want to retire, because this is the greatest place on earth. Isn't it true?
Absolutely.
But you ultimately, you start maturing up in life and say, well, there's more to life than just this. And I can always go take the vacation. Yeah. Where is the place that I love the people, I love to be, I can always drive to the beach, I can always go to these places. Where is it culturally where I want to spend my weekends, my during the day? And, again, every place usually looks at you as utopia compared to here, but the people who are living there are thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
And so, you have to take a step back and say there are negativity that some's fixable, some's not. But it's a great place.
Yeah. At the end of the day, what does your everyday look like? Not what is your 1 week of vacation, because when you plan a vacation, you're not going to plan a boring, dull trip, right?
Yeah.
You're going to plan something that's going to be exciting. You're going to be invigorated. You're going to be so eager to get out there. But what are you going to then do after that, right?
That's right.
Because that honeymoon period comes to an end. The vacation 100%. Period comes to an end.
That's right.
What are you going to do at 6:30 in the morning on a Tuesday? What is that going to look like?
That's correct.
So I love that analogy that you used.
Yeah.
For the final question, Kevin, what can I do to help?
Well, I appreciate you, first of all, having me on the show.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate being able to tell the story and talk about our state and talk about the industry and all. And if there's any viewers that would love any help, I'd love to help them.
What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
They can certainly they can email me, or they can certainly call me on my cell phone. Either way.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll put the website and your contact info.
That would be great.
We'll refrain from the cell phone.
Yeah, that's fine. But they can certainly contact me via email, and I'd love to talk to them.
You got it, Kevin. Well, thank you
so
much.
Thank you for the opportunity to be on the show with you. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. I enjoyed having you here and hearing about your industry and really everything that you've gone through over the last, couple of decades.
I hope people are still awake.
Oh yeah. They're still awake for sure. So thank you so much, and I thank you everybody else for tuning in. Whatever platform you're listening to us on, if you're interested or you want to learn a little bit more, whether you're an employer or an employee, reach out to Kevin and his team, and they're going to make sure that they take great care of you in whatever capacity they can. So thank y'all so very much. This has been the latest episode of the Patty G Show. Hear a little bit more about the folks that bring you this show each and every week right now.
Welcome to the brand new Falaya mobile app. We took all the same tech that's helped hundreds of people sell their homes themselves and packed it into an easy-to-use app for your phone. When you download the Falaya mobile app on either the Apple or Android App Store, you'll immediately be able to see the power of this game-changing tool. From the seller's dashboard, you can navigate to all the information that you need. We intentionally separated everything into key groups, such as tasks to be completed, buyer leads for your listing, and contact information for everyone involved through closing. When you get an offer on your property, you can simply review and respond all within the app. No matter where you are in the world, you'll be able to monitor everything that's going on with your property from listed to sold. It's truly the power of Falaya in the palm of your hand. Download the app and see for yourself. Falaya, it's real estate reimagined.
Thank you to our wonderful sponsor, Lake Men's Health Center with Our Lady of the Lake Physicians Group. Guys, I know it's tough to get out and go to the doctor. I know it's challenging to find time in our busy days, but I promise you, signing up to be a part of this group with Dr. Curtis Chastain and Dr. Tyler Boudreau, you won't regret it for several reasons, but most of those being the fact of the time it saves where you're able to get in on the same day, get that appointment done, and spend that time you need to talk with them about what your health goals and concerns are, as well as ensuring that the financial investments you have, you will be able to live out and see those come to fruition. So if you're an investing guy, you know all about and planning for the future and investing in the future. There's no other more important thing to invest in than your health. Make sure you go check them out, our Lady of the Lake Physicians Group Men's Health Center, and tell them Patty G sent you. McLavy's Ltd, a proud sponsor of the Patty G Show, has been serving the Baton Rouge area proudly for 40 plus years. Gentlemen and ladies, if you're shopping for your man, there is no other place in the Baton Rouge area to get your clothing, whether it's game day needs, everyday needs, business attire, formal attire, whatever you want. Go over there, see Frank and Ashley. It's a father-daughter duo. They do incredible things in their store. They will outfit you from as simply a shirt that you need for one evening or all the way to a full wardrobe overhaul. They're going to take care of you every step of the way, and be sure and let them know that Patty G Show sent you.
Simple man, don't want a complication.